Alhamdulillah, wa salat, wa salam ala wa rasulullah. We're going to go ahead and get started on the class for today, and we are continuing with a new topic that we just began a couple of days ago, entitled Understanding How to Understand and Benefit from the Mistakes and Differences of the Companions. And we spoke about how it all began during the Caliphate of Uthman, when a hypocrite who was a Jew pretended to be Muslim. He converted to Islam under the pretension of truly wanting to be a good Muslim. But in reality, he was set on trying to destroy Islam. His name was Ibn Saba. Okay? He did not like the idea that even though the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had died, still government and power remained in the hands of the Arabs instead of the Jews. And so he began a campaign to bring down Islam. And he waited until the Caliphate of Uthman, because everyone feared Umar. This would have never happened under the Caliphate of Umar. Umar was feared by too many people, and so was Abu Bakr. But because Uthman was such a nice guy, this man felt that this was the time to make his move, to destroy Islam, to just take down the Arabs, and to put the power back into the hands of the Jews again. So he began a vicious campaign against Uthman, and he went and solicited the help of prominent companions, such as the son of Abu Bakr, Ibn al-As, and he went to people who had grievances with Uthman, because Uthman had removed them from their positions of power for different reasons. Well, this is what the hypocrites do today. If they want to take down a person, they go and try to get the enlist the help of others who have grievances with that person. And that's what Ibn Saba did. And today we're going to speak about one person who he manipulated to play into his hand, Aamir ibn Abdullah Tamimi. Aamir ibn Abdullah Tamimi. Now, who was Ibn Abdullah Tamimi? He was an eminent Muslim who lived in Busra. Okay? He was very religious. In fact, he was one who would spend the whole night praying. He was so absorbed in his religious devotions that he cut himself off from the world around him, just like Abu Dar did. We talked about yesterday how Ibn Saba had enlisted the help of Abu Dar. Abu Dar, who shunned luxury, who shunned money. He felt that the life of this world was a distraction from paradise. He was under the view that the more financial and luxurious things we had, the lesser we would focus on our relationship with Allah. Well, Abu Dar wasn't the only one that shared that view. Aamir ibn Abdullah Tamimi did too. And as a result, he became critical of the irreligious ways of life of the people around him. And he used to go around criticizing people for, you know, how they were living the life of this world. Their big houses, their fancy clothing, their fancy homes, and all of that. In fact, he spoke out so much that the governor of Basra complained about him to Uthman. Because everybody knows, as I told you again, Uthman was a multimillionaire. He was the richest of all the companions. He always has been. That's why the Prophet married his daughters to him. Okay, Uthman lived a lavish lifestyle. And so this man began to speak out against Uthman, just like Abu Dar did, just like others had done. So the governor of Basra complained to Uthman, and Uthman directed that Aamir ibn Abdullah be sent to Syria. He says, send him to Syria. Why did he send him to Syria? Because who was the governor of Syria? The governor of Syria was Muawaiyah. And many of you should remember who Muawaiyah was. He was the son of Abu Sufyan. And he was Uthman's cousin. He was the Prophet Muhammad's cousin. They were all related. Okay, so Uthman said, send this brother to Syria so that Muawaiyah can keep an eye on him. Okay, and that's what they did. Even though he complained against Uthman, you know, Uthman, just like Uthman could not find it in his heart to do anything to the son of Abu Bakr. He couldn't find it in his heart to do anything to stop Aamir al-As. Well, he couldn't find it in his heart to hurt Abdullah Tamimi either. He said, just send him to Syria, where Muawaiyah can keep a watch over him. And one of the other complaints that they found out about Aamir, not only did he shun money and living a luxurious lifestyle, but he also didn't eat meat. Now, again, we talked about this when we talked about the lawful and the unlawful. There is nothing wrong with a person choosing to not eat meat. If that's your choice. If you choose to not eat meat, that's your choice. But if you go around telling people that it's haram to eat meat, that meat is bad for you, then you've committed a sin, because everything that Allah made lawful is good and clean. This is why no Muslim should ever call himself a vegan. Because what do vegans believe? They believe that it is wrong and it is bad, it is dirty to kill animals and to eat animal meat. So how can you call yourself a vegan? Okay, when Allah said everything is that he made lawful is good and clean. So, you know, Aamir did not eat meat. And some of the people were saying that he was saying that you shouldn't eat meat, that meat shouldn't be eaten. So to test him, Muawaiyah invited Aamir to dinner, and they served meat to him. Aamir ate everything on the dish, you know, that he sent, and he also partook of the dish, the meat too. And so when Muawaiyah saw that not only did he eat everything that was on the dish, but he also ate some of the meat too, Muawaiyah said these people are lying. They're lying on Aamir. He's not going around saying that it's haram to eat meat and it's haram to have a nice lifestyle. You know, he chose to not have a nice lifestyle. He chose to not eat but certain meats, but he was not sitting there saying it's haram. They also put another allegation against Aamir. The people lied. They had accused him of not offering the Friday prayers, that he didn't go to Juma. Now, back in those days under the Caliphate, you know, Umar was strict about that. He set it in motion. If a man missed more than 3 Jumas, that man was to be brought before the Caliph and held to account for it. So back in those days, if you missed more than 3 Jumas, you were in trouble as a man. Well, the people alleged that he did not offer Friday prayers. So what Muawaiyah did was he posted some people to spy on the activities of Aamir in regards to the Friday prayers. And they reported back to him that this was not true. Aamir did indeed attend the Juma prayers. He just came last, but he took his seat in the last row, and then he would lead before other people. And so that was a lie. He never missed Juma. He just was the last one to come, and he would also leave before the other people would leave. And by Uthman sending Aamir to Syria and having Muawaiyah to check the allegations, this showed the wisdom of Uthman and Muawaiyah. Because what did Uthman and Muawaiyah do that others were not doing? They did what Allah says in the Quran. Whenever someone comes to you with bad news about another person, before you pass it on, you should investigate to see if it is true. Remember, we talked about that. Before you listen and believe what people say, investigate. And so Uthman and Muawaiyah were following what Allah said in the Quran, when Allah says in the interpretation and meaning, "O you who believe, if an evil person comes to you with bad news, verify it, or you would harm somebody out of ignorance and then regret what you've done. So here you can see why Uthman was the best of this nation at that time. Abu Bakr had died, Umar had died, Uthman was the next in line and became the caliph, and he was the third best of this nation. You see why? Because he had the wisdom that others didn't have. Also, guys, another allegation that the people made against Aamir. They said not only did he hate money and say it's haram for people to be money, because he did speak out against a lavish lifestyle, but they also, and not only did they say that he didn't attend Juma prayer and he didn't eat meat, but they also said he had a problem with marriage, that he was imitating the Christians, that he swore an oath of celibacy. He swore an oath to never ever marry again. Now you guys know we talked about the lawful and the unlawful. It is haram for us as Muslims to swear an oath of celibacy. The Prophet ﷺ said, I marry, you should marry too. And Allah encourages us to marry. Okay, so to see if this was true, Muawaiyah tested him again. He asked Aamir, he said, hey Aamir, you're such a nice, young, good-looking man. Why are you not married? And Aamir answered him, he said, well, I don't have a problem with marriage. He said, but the thing is, I love to pray. I spend most of my time praying, worshiping Allah. He said, and I don't know any woman who would be happy with that. He said, women want you to spend all your time with them. He said, and I'm so afraid that if I married a woman, she would want to divorce me because she'd feel like I'm not spending enough time with her. He said, but if I can find a woman who's willing to accept the fact that I like to pray a lot, then I would be happy to get married. See that? When Aamir explained himself, Muawaiyah saw that the people had once again lied on him. And again, this is what happens all the time, guys. We hear rumors. People spread vicious, nasty rumors about us. And instead of us, finding out the truth, we believe what we hear and we go and spread it on to someone else. This is not how it should be. Remember, the sins of the tongue. That's one of the #1 reasons why there'll be more people in hellfire. So here you can see the wisdom of Uthman and the wisdom of Muawaiyah. Muawaiyah went back to Uthman and reported that all the complaints, all the slander that the people made against Aamir were simply just that, slander. So Uthman said, well, since there's nothing to substantiate the allegations these people made about him, he said you can send him back home to Basra, or tell him that he's free to go anywhere he wants to in the world. Aamir refused to go back to Basra because he was so upset that the people had accused him of all these wrong things. So he refused to go back to Basra. Instead, he remained in Syria, and he joined the army and helped the Muslims fight against the Romans. Back in this part of history, this is when the Muslims were fighting against the Romans. Remember, guys, originally Syria was not an Arabic country. Syria was the part of the Roman Empire. But alhamdulillah, under the Caliphate of Umar, the Muslims had taken Syria and made it part of the Muslim state. They conquered, they defeated the Romans. And that's how Syria became the Muslim country and the Arabic country that it is today. Originally, it was part of the Roman Empire. Okay, but this time they were still fighting against the Romans and were trying to take back Syria. So Aamir ended up joining the war and helping to fight against the Romans. In the meantime, when the people of Kufa, they heard about what happened with Aamir, and they invited him to come there to live and visit with them. Remember, Aamir was another one of the eminent companions. People love to entertain the eminent companions. So Aamir went and visited Kufa when they sent him an invitation. The people welcomed him and they humored him in his eccentricities. Remember, he was an eccentric person like Abu Dhar. He was one of the eminent companions, but he was also eccentric, you know, because he didn't like luxury and certain things. They found Aamir. They found that being intensely religious, they found that he was very religious, and also he was critical of the luxurious style of government. And again, this was Aamir's problem. He continued to speak out against money, against the luxurious way of living that Uthman and his governors did. And also the people of Kufa, they found that Aamir also entertained some bitterness in his heart against Uthman for making him go to Syria to be tested by Muawaiyah. And again, this is what happens. This is how Shaitan plays on us. This was an eminent companion who was being slandered by the people that lived around him. Uthman was looking out for him. Uthman was trying to vindicate him of the slander. But at this point, the damage had been done. Aamir was bitter. He was angry. He was hurt. And instead of him seeing that Uthman had helped him, but proved him to be free of these allegations, instead he turned his bitterness towards Uthman, because he said Uthman should have believed me anyway. He should have known better than to think the worst of me anyway. He shouldn't have sent me through those tests anyway. Okay? And then Aamir began to speak out about that. He began to tell the people of Kufa, how he felt that Uthman should never have listened to the people anyway. He should have believed him. He exploited this position amongst the people. Okay? And the people in turn exploited this to others. When they found that Aamir held in his heart bitterness towards Uthman, the people played on that, because the people of Kufa did not like the leadership of Uthman. The people of Kufa did not like him as the caliph. Okay? So they began to add tales about the things Uthman does to people and his government that were not true. And again, all this did was stir within the heart of Aamir more bitterness, to the point that Aamir became another one that was swayed against Uthman. In fact, he publicly announced that Uthman had no right to be the leader of the Muslims. In fact, someone suggested that the best jihad for a man of the status of Aamir was to tell Uthman to his face that he was not fit to be leader over the Muslims and that he should resign. Again, as you can see, guys, the people of Kufa, they were in support of Ibn Saba. These were Ibn Saba's supporters. Okay? So just like they played on Aamir bin al-As and his grievance, and Abu Dhar and his grievance, they now played on Aamir ibn Abdullah Tamimi's grievance. But they knew that being the powerful companion he was, that they could really stroke his ego. And that's what they did. They stroked his ego to the point where they managed to convince him to go back to Medina and tell Uthman to his face that he needs to resign and turn over the caliphate to Ali. And this is what happens today, guys. The hypocrites, they continue to gather supporters against us. And they always lay waiting to hear any bad news against whoever it is that they hate. And then, like vultures, they attach themselves and they set out to destroy the person that they hate. Well, the hypocrites of Kufa used Aamir for this. They egged him on to be the one to confront Uthman. And Uthman stood up and told them, he said, I am not afraid of anyone except Allah. I am one of the eminent companions I was with the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I was promised paradise. I was one of those companions who was promised paradise as well. He said, I fear no one but Allah. And I do have the courage to confront Uthman and tell him that he's not fit to be the leader over the Muslims. And so when he said this, the people of Kufa declared their faith in him, and they chose him to be their emissary to go to Medina and speak to Uthman. Aamir agreed and undertook the mission. So can you see, guys, this is how it all started. All because, you know, people twisting things around when in reality, Uthman was looking out and protecting Aamir. He followed what Allah said in the Quran and proved this man to not be guilty of the charges and allegations people made against him. But he couldn't see that. Aamir couldn't see that. He was still suffering with that bitterness in the heart. This is why we did the whole series on guarding the tongue. We talked about how as Muslims, we should never harbor bad thoughts about a person. When you harbor bad thoughts in your heart about a person, it will nurture, it will grow, and you will end up doing what this man did. So what is it that Aamir did? He went to Medina and he requested to meet with Uthman. Uthman agreed to meet with him. And when Uthman met with him, Aamir told him bluntly that he was not fit to be the leader over the Muslims and that he should resign. Uthman responded by telling him that as leader, his responsibility was to Allah and not to the people. Uthman told him Allah is the one that clothed him with the office of the caliphate. And since Allah gave him this office, he could not remove himself from it just because somebody wants him to. He also said that he held the office for over 10 years. And during those 10 years of him being the leader over the Muslims, he has served the Muslims to the best of his ability. Under his caliphate, the Muslims won many conquests against the Romans and the Persians. The state had become financially prosperous under him. He had also increased the stipends of the people. Their welfare system was full so that the women were taken care of. In other words, he let Aamir know that he had discharged his duties as the caliphate honestly as Allah had commanded him to do. So he told Aamir that under the circumstances, unless Aamir can come with some true charges against him, he would never resign, because this was a duty and obligation passed on to him by Allah. So here you can see. So basically, Uthman told him, prove it. All these lies against me, all these attacks against my character. Either you people prove me to be unfit, otherwise go away. And again, remember, Uthman proved him to be innocent. Uthman told him, they slandered you, Aki. I proved you to be innocent of those charges. Why come you can't do the same for me? And he told Uthman, well, you should have believed me anyway. You should never have investigated. You should have known that I was better than that anyway. Okay? And Aamir told Uthman, he said, charges or no charges, he had forfeited the right to rule and he should step down of his own free will. And if he didn't step down as the caliph, then he would be removed by force. You see that? That was pure sedition on the part of Aamir. Pure sedition. And hot words were exchanged between the two of them. But to show just how just Uthman was, he did not punish Aamir for his disrespect. He did not punish Aamir for his slander. Instead, all he did was ban him from going back to Kufa. He said, it seems like the instigators who are led by Ibn Saba and his crew in Kufa have affected you in a bad way, so I'm going to prevent you from going back around them. He said, this place is a place that plants bad seeds. He said, so why don't, instead I'm going to tell you to go and live in Syria. So that way Muawaiyah can take care of you and keep an eye on you. See how just and good Uthman was. Anyone else would have brought him up on charges for the slander, the allegations he was making against Uthman. And this is the nature of those people amongst us who are righteous. Those of us who are often falsely accused. Despite the disrespect, despite the lies that the people make against us, we try to still remain just. We try to still remain upright, hoping that Allah will mend the broken fences, hoping that Allah will guide the rebellious ones back to the truth. It happens every day. I know I go through this every day. You know, people slander me and say horrible things about me. Do I care? I don't even care, but I just say, well, hopefully Allah will guide them back and show them the truth. People don't even confront me. Have they come to me and asked me, you know, is this true? No. Did you do this? No. Or what? Why did you do that? They don't care, you know, but I sit there and I let it go. That's the same way Uthman did. He, instead of him, you know, disciplining this brother, he said, just go stay in Syria. That way you will be away from that terrible environment. And inshallah, you will come back to see that I am still Uthman. I'm the same Uthman who was there with the Prophet Muhammad. I am the same Uthman that I was then. I have not changed. But again, this would lead to the downfall of Uthman. Just like Uthman chose to ignore what the son of Abu Bakr did, and what Aamir al-As did, he chose to ignore this, and all of this is what ended up leading to Uthman's downfall. Just like it leads to our downfall. Instead of us addressing it, trying to stop it, trying to be more severe with the people who make the allegations, it ends up destroying us. Okay. So after that, Aamir ibn Abdullah Tamimi, impressing the demand for Uthman to step down, he had no arguments, no proof, of course. Okay. He had no choice but to go back to Syria. But again, at this point, Ibn Saba had gained so much more support. So much more support. And people were talking about this. So what did Uthman do? Uthman met with his cabinet. Ali was one of the men on his cabinet. Okay, just like Uthman was one of the men on the cabinet of Abu Bakr and Umar, you know, Ali was on the cabinet of Uthman's. Uthman met with Ali to discuss what was going on. And Ali talked in cautious and diplomatic terms. Because again, what were the people asking Uthman to do? What was Ibn Saba and them saying? They were trying to get Uthman to step down and then make Ali the caliph. Okay. So Uthman met with Ali and Ali spoke in diplomatic terms. Ali did not come forward to support Uthman, nor did Ali support the rebels. He took a middle course where he just spoke diplomatically, but Ali didn't do yay or nay. But he was critical. He was critical of the leniency of Uthman. In fact, Ali told Uthman that it was because of his leniency that the governors in the provinces had become so headstrong. And they were following policies that were not approved by the people. So Ali did not support, nor was he against Uthman, but he told Uthman, you need to crack down more on your governors. Crack down more on the people you've made governors. You're too lenient. You're allowing them to get away with too many things. Ali was also critical that under Uthman's government, the state had been monopolized by his family members. Most of the people who were governors were Uthman's relatives, like Muawaiyah. Muawaiyah was his cousin. Okay? Ali told him, why did you appoint, and by the way, Ali and Uthman were related too. Ali was also a cousin of Uthman. They were all from the tribe of the Prophet Muhammad. They were from, you know, the Hashim tribe. But so Ali told him, you know, you are putting too many of our family members in office. Why don't you hire people and promote people into positions who are not closely related to you? Because this is what Ibn Saba and his supporters were complaining about too. They were accusing Uthman of being too much into the life of this world, and they were accusing his governors, you know, of dealing with nepotism and favoritism. However, Uthman stuck to the view that none of this stuff was true. If he was showing nepotism, favoritism, if his governors were doing the same, that the people need to bring the proof. Either bring the proof. If they didn't bring the proof, I'm not changing anything. Okay, and this led to this led to the disruption of unity amongst the Muslims. Okay, you had the Muslims becoming divided, some in support of what Ali was saying and others in support of Uthman. So what did Uthman do? After he couldn't really get much help from Ali, Uthman called for a council of governors. He demanded all the governors of the Islamic provinces to come and meet with him in Medina so that he can voice his concerns and let them know of the propaganda, the allegations that were being spread, you know, about them. And he wanted their suggestions on how to overcome this. Abdullah ibn Aamir, who was the governor of Basra, suggested that the people responsible for making these allegations should be sent to the borders to fight in the war. Muawaiyah suggested that the governors should be authorized to suppress the sedition movements within their provinces. And Abdullah bin Saud, who was another governor, proposed that these evil people should be won over by giving them favors. So this is what they talked about in this big meeting. You know, what can we do to overcome the lies, the propaganda put out by Ibn Saba and his supporters? Okay. Aamir ibn al-As had a different view. Remember, he was the one that had a personal grievance against Uthman because Uthman had removed him as governor of Egypt. Aamir ibn al-As observed that there could be no improvement in the situation. He said unless Uthman himself changed his policies and stopped favoring his relatives, and instead appointed other men to the job. Now remember, even though Aamir bin al-As had been removed as governor, he was still on the council. He was still one of the eminent companions. He was one of the ones promised paradise to. He was an eminent companion, so he was also on that council, you know, of suggestions. Okay, and Aamir ibn al-As was like Ali, saying that he should remove his relatives as being head positions. Okay, so basically, guys, they didn't really come up with any way of addressing the situation. They went back and forth over this, but there really wasn't anything concrete that they could come up with to address this situation. But Uthman did take note of Aamir ibn al-As's criticism. He told Aamir ibn al-As, he said that it was for the Caliph as head of state to appoint whoever he wanted to state positions. He said, I have that right as ruler over the Muslims, as leader over the Muslims, to appoint into office people whom I can trust. He said, I can trust my family members. They happen to be related to me, but they are qualified. He said, and they are eminent companions, and I can trust them with my life. He also pointed out that in an Islamic state, high offices were burdens. No one should want to be elected. Remember, the Prophet said, never ask to be elected to a position. He said none of his rulers asked it to be elected governors. He appointed them. None of them asked for it. And just like he didn't ask to be the caliphate. He had been made the caliph. Okay, so that's how he came back at Aamir ibn al-As. He said, I put in office whoever I want, and I'm going to put in office people who are qualified and people whom I can trust. And everyone who's a governor is someone that I can trust. So thus, guys, began the investigations into the charges against Uthman. Okay? The best the hypocrites could come up with against Uthman was that he indulged in nepotism and that he lived a luxurious lifestyle. They couldn't prove any other allegation against him. Yes, it was a fact that all his governors were relatives. And yes, he lived a luxurious lifestyle, but he always have. He was a multimillionaire. But despite the lies, Uthman tried to accommodate the people by allowing the people to continue to investigate him. You know, and how many people would do that? I mean, Umar would not have allowed it. If this was Umar's caliphate, Umar would never allow it. He'd tell people, you got a problem with me? Get on the cutting block. Okay? But being the type of nice person Uthman was, he said, I am doing what Allah commanded me to do. I have nothing to hide. If you guys can investigate and find something wrong with me, bring it. Umar wouldn't have done that. Abu Bakr wouldn't have done that or allowed that, but Uthman did. And all they could come up with was that he was guilty of nepotism and living a luxurious lifestyle. Okay, we're going to stop right here for today. Tomorrow, we're going to continue with what happened after that. After the fact that they couldn't prove anything except these two things, what happened? How did it spiral out of control even more? We'll discuss that tomorrow. So we'll stop right here. And again, before I stop, I want to remind you guys, the purpose of this series is for us to learn from their mistakes, to learn from their differences. You can see Uthman living by the Quran, living by the Sunnah. When they made those allegations against Aamir, he didn't believe it. He had him go somewhere and investigate to prove him to be clear of them. But unfortunately, that's not what they did to Uthman. Even though they couldn't find nothing except these two things, they still kept on with their slander against him, their attacks against him. We need to learn from that. Okay, so we'll stop right here. If